Hi everybody, in this episode I'm going to be showing you how to assemble and what parts to buy for the Sony a7S II to make a kind of a complete cinema setup. We'll be demonstrating things such as like matte boxes and the recorders that you can use and things like the Atomos and everything you kind of need to pull this kit together and make a nice cinema kit here. So first of all, I start with the Manfrotto 504 HD tripod. This is a nice kind of medium weight tripod that works well with heavier DSLR rigs. So if you're going to be setting up a smaller DSLR, you can get a smaller tripod, but with this one it's got a nice pan tilt and the nice risers and everything operates pretty smoothly on it. It's got a little heavier head. When you order this tripod, it will come with a 1/4 inch screw and a 3/8 inch screw, and I put both of them on and mounted to the dovetail that you'll be seeing here that hooks up to the Sony. And most of the camera components I store inside of this Pelican case, which is about a 24 inch by 20 inch case that's about 10 inches deep. And this here is part of the Tilta kit. You can buy this as a full kit where you've got the speed rails with the 15mm rods, with the mounting plate, and also with the cage that fits the a7S II. Just make sure you get the one with the a7S II. And on the bottom here, I've got what's called a dovetail. This dovetail will hook to your speed plate here, and this has to be purchased separately from the Tilta kit, but it's also the Tilta brand standard 10-inch dovetail plate. So I'm going to put all these screws, both these screws, the 1/4 inch and the 3/8 inch, in the bottom of the dovetail. And make sure that I've got the little locking latch toward the back when you put it on, so the lens is pointing the opposite direction of the safety latch on the back of the dovetail. So I'm going to tighten these on, get them fairly snug. You don't want to over tighten, or sometimes you can break screws and whatnot, but this, you can mount it in there pretty snug and lock it on. And once I've got those on, I'm going to look at the direction that it says to put this on. The direction that it points there is the direction of the lens. So I'm going to slide that on from the back of the dovetail and click it into place. And this is basically the speed plate with the 15mm rods. And then I'm going to lock it so it doesn't slide back and forth. I always make sure to lock it. Here's the cage, the Tilta cage that's used for the a7S II. I consider this a one-time setup where you put the camera mounted into the cage with the HDMI cables. Just make sure it slides in the proper fashion, and put a mounting screw inside the bottom to fit into the a7S II. And make sure when you're doing this, you'll see a little letter on the bottom that points to the a7S II screw hull, because this cage also fits for the a7S as well, and the a7R. So we're going to tighten that in there and get it nice and snug. And once again, be careful of over tightening this so it doesn't break the screw hole inside of the actual camera. Just get it so it's fairly snug, fairly tight, so it's not going to rotate or move. I'm also going to take the side handle and mount that on. Just get that screwed into place. And there's a nice little wooden handle that you put on the side of the Tilta to hold the camera, and also it has a triggering button on it to start recording the camera. So once that's tight there. Actually, let's go ahead and put on this mini dovetail. We're going to put it on the bottom and make sure that the a7S instructions have it going through the a7S II. Make sure that, first of all, this is the a7S II dovetail plate, mini dovetail plate that you're putting on, and then you put it in the little inset there, pop it on, put the screws in and tighten that up as well, and that's going to be over the camera screw. And this will have 2 screws you put into the bottom. And once this is done here, I usually leave the cage all mounted together, and I don't take this apart when I'm done. I put it in the case just like this with the HDMI cables in. So I'm going to pull down the little opening to the HDMI cable and also the little USB slot there that will trigger start the camera. And it comes with these 2 plates. One is the large HDMI holder, and the other one is the small HDMI holder, the mini HDMI holder. Actually, the micro HDMI holder, and this kit does come with the HDMI cables as well. They're perfectly fit for these little safety holders here, so the HDMI doesn't get bent or ruin the port inside the camera, because it's really kind of flimsy inside these cameras. So I put in the large HDMI, and you can see where I'm putting in the micro HDMI along with the USB. I believe that's a USB-C port, but it's a USB port that triggers the camera once again. So we're going to tighten those up there. Once those are nice and snug, we're going to get the HDMI cables and put those in the side. This is the micro HDMI cable I'm putting in here. Make sure it's lined up, kind of eyeball it, make sure it's going in straight so you don't, and actually the right direction so it doesn't mess up the port. And once that's in there, I'm going to also grab the USB cable and plug that in the other side. And this will feed to the handle for triggering the camera to start and stop. So we're going to eyeball that as well, make sure it's going in straight. And once that's done, you can grab your Allen wrench that comes with the kit and tighten that up. And don't over tighten this, just get it fairly snug so those cables aren't going to be pulled out. If you tighten this super tight, it can start crushing those cables. Now I'm going to take this the large end of the HDMI. So this goes from micro to large to regular HDMI, and then I'm going to tighten this one here on top of the large HDMI cable. And once again, don't tighten it too much or you won't even be able to plug another HDMI cable into it because it will crush it. Now I'm going to plug in the triggering cable here into the handle. Just make sure it goes in the right direction. You'll see a little slot that to get it in the right direction and plug that in. It'll only go in one way. And once this kit's set up like this, I usually leave this in the case like that and I never have to tear it down again. And this is where the mini dovetail slides in. You want to make sure that's unlocked so it slides in. And it will really only slide in one direction here as you pop it into place, and you'll tighten that up so it stays in place. And now the camera is mounted to the base plate with the rods. Now these are the lenses that I purchased. These are the Rokinon Sony E-mount prime lens kit. Really nice set of primes here. I bought one additional one to have a really wide angle lens, so I've got 6 total, but the kit that you can buy online it comes in a kit of 5. So let's pop on one of these lenses here. I've got a 15mm prime lens that we're going to with a Sony E-mount. And so if you're going to purchase those, make sure you purchase the right type. We've got a lens locked on there, and don't forget the top handle. I'm going to pop the top handle on here, so if we need to transport the camera or lift it up, take it out the tripod, you got to hold that handle there. Now here I've got a wooden camera adapter for gold pin mount Anton Bauer to the Sony battery, and I recommend getting what's called an IndiPRO gold mount plate with a dummy battery, 15mm rod bracket included, so you can mount this right on. If you get the wooden camera, you have to kind of piece it together with all these extra pieces, so I'd recommend getting the IndiPRO Tools gold mount plate, the NP-FW50 dummy battery. And then we can plug this in. This is nice because it adapts your Anton Bauer or gold mount batteries to the Sony battery. You can put the battery in here and close it up, and it's got that little teeny door to open up to let that cable come out built right on the Sony. So now I'm going to mount a gold mount battery to my the back of this device here, which will now power the camera for quite some time. This is a Redrock Micro MatteBox with the 15mm rod adapter to hold that on there. We can slide that right on there. We're going to put our MatteBox on, so if you need to put ND filters or gradient filters or grad filters or anything like that on your camera, you can. And also to block out lens flare with the top French flag and also the side flags to block out any sort of lens flare going into the camera. And it's also nice if you want to put in something like a circular polarizer. The filter trays rotate as well, so you can do your circular polarizer as well as ND, and it comes with 2 trays. And I've hooked that on the very, very front, and I'm going to kind of slide this back. Notice that I just put the MatteBox in the very, very front of those bars there, and then we're going to slide this back until it fits. Because with these lenses, these are kind of smaller lenses, so it's a little bit of a tight fit with this MatteBox here. You can get other types. But this is the follow focus mechanism here. Also Redrock Micro with 15mm rod mount here. I'm going to loosen everything to slide that follow focus arm out, and we're going to mount that onto the bars. And I kind of have to put it with a lens this small. You kind of have to put it on the opposite side as the swinging door on the MatteBox. And once you get that lined up, you can slide that in, make sure it's on the gear on the lens, and don't pressure it really hard against the lens. Put it in just so those gears are set inside, and then we're going to tighten that up and retighten it to the rod as well. Now we can do a little bit of adjustment. I like to take the rods and loosen those up, and then we can move the MatteBox back and get that in the proper location. But I've got this little excess on the actual MatteBox. We can just slide back and get it slid right up against the lens there, and there we go. Tighten that up. And we can open the door here, loosen it, swing it out, and now you've got your MatteBox which swings out And these are called Redrock Micro Donuts. If you buy these in a set for different lens sizes, you can pop this right onto the lens, and this will keep glare from coming back, bouncing back from the ND, from light hitting the ND filters or any filters that you have in there, and getting a weird little image mirror inside of your ND filters. So the donuts are pretty necessary. I'm going to put on the side flags here as well, so if you want to cut out any sort of side flares coming in, if you get light hit from the sides, you might get little lens flares, so that kind of helps you block out your lens flares. And once those are mounted, those mount like right in the middle slot on those sides there. The top flag's a little different, it just mounts right on top of the screws, but the side ones have to go into that little slit that's inside the sides there, and it fits in. So here's our filter tray. The silver screws on these, as they loosen, don't loosen them all the way, they'll drop out. Just loosen them a little bit and you can pop out the filter tray. And here's one of the ND filters. This is a 0.9 K-Vision ND filter here. Recommend maybe buying like a 0.3, 0.6, and 0.9, or maybe 0.6, 0.9, and 1.2 will be good for outside shooting. If it's too bright and you want to really keep your shutter speed at like 1/48th of a second. It comes with some microfiber cloth to clean the lenses and to store them in as well. And be careful when you mount those in, make sure they don't fall out and they're locked in properly. And then you can slide in your filter till it clicks, and then you can tighten your screw here to make sure it's mounted. And then the top screw is to loosen so you can actually rotate these filters. And this is the Atomos Shogun Flame Kit. I'd recommend buying this in the kit. It comes with a whole bunch of accessories. It comes with a D-tap cable, so you can plug it into the battery on the back. And this is an actual Cine arm here that you can get on B&H or almost any production website for mounting the Atomos. So we bought that separately. But the kit does come with a D-tap cable. It comes with a solid state cases. You might have to buy the solid state case or actual drives separately, and insert them inside these kits, inside these little inserts, and then put them inside. Now this arm here to mount it, to get the monitor on here, I'm going to straighten everything so it's just straight up and down as possible, and tighten this arm, which tightens all the bendy parts on this. And we're going to mount this onto the monitor. Well, let's show the outside kind of dark box that keeps light from coming in onto the screen, so you can actually see when you're outside. You can look into a little hole. I'm going to take the little insert and stick it into this kind of outer frame here, and then we're going to put it on the Atomos. And then we're going to take the little screw end here and tighten it into the monitor. And once we've rotated that enough and it kind of seats all the way in, then we're going to kind of grab this little rubber stamp screw on the end here and tighten that up against the monitor, so it's kind of safetied in there pretty good. So it's pressurizing, doing opposing pressure and keeping the monitor from falling off. And I'm going to put on one of these little 1/4-inch screws here on top of the cage. And this is all still straight, so it's easy to screw in. It's just easy to keep everything screwed in with the monitor straight up and everything still tightened. I haven't loosened anything yet. And now we can loosen once that's tight, turn around the monitor. I put this in the top screw on the monitor so we can actually kind of hang it down like this and then look at the monitor. Instead of putting it in the bottom, I like it on the top. It's just a preference thing. That's where I like to put that in there. Now I've got a regular HDMI cable. It's got a standard HDMI to standard HDMI male pins on both sides. We're going to plug it into the monitor and plug it into the back of the little mounted HDMI adapter on the camera here. Once that's plugged in, I'm going to grab the D-tap to power up the, put it in the battery plate, plug that in, and pull this around and plug it into the monitor, and we will have power from the battery to the Atomos. You don't have to put any batteries on the back of the Atomos. After that, I like to test to make sure the camera is balanced. I loosen the tilt and just see if it's top heavy or not, and you can slide it on the dovetail or on the speed plate on the tripod and kind of adjust it to make sure the camera is balanced and it's not front heavy or back heavy. And once that is stabilized, and now let's turn on the camera. And we're going to turn on the Atomos on this side here on the right side, turn that on. And let it boot up and make sure that we've got signal coming from the camera. And I do have some episodes where I show how to use the Atomos and show how to set up the Sony. This is the outside black box here If you're shooting outside, you can slide this in. This is magnetized, so when you slide it in, it should kind of click into place, and the magnet will hold that in. It's got a little kind of black bag hand pouch here, kind of rubbery hand pouch. You can stick your hand through to touch the screen and set up your Atomos once you have the box on. And here's our kind of outside little movie box viewing screen here. You slide into place and keeps it dark. So you got this little dark room that you can look inside and see your monitor without the sunlight kind of blasting it out and not being able to see it outside. So this is the complete setup kit. I've gone through all the parts. You can look through it, and I think there's a great little kit to have with A7S. Is great quality image. The lenses are nice. The Atomos is a really nice 422 recorder. Records in a couple different formats that are just really nice, high quality. And under the description, I've listed a bunch of links to all these different products that you can purchase for the A7S Mark II. If you have any questions, please let me know, and make sure you watch my other tutorials on how to set up the A7S II for cinematography, and also use of the Atomos in conjunction with the A7S II as well. Thank you.